Hey everybody, Graeme McInnis here with McInnis Realty Group, and this is my monthly market update for what happened in the Calgary real estate market in May. But what we're mainly going to be talking about is what is currently and will continue to be happening in all of Alberta. So we're going to talk about Edmonton as well, the other cities in Alberta, and we're going to take a deep dive into what exactly is driving this record low inventory in Alberta. Why do we have so few homes for sale? And why are the prices rising so rapidly? And we'll also discuss why that may continue to be the case for the foreseeable future. Now, just to be clear, these slides are created by the Alberta Real Estate Association and Marianne Laurie, our economist at the Calgary Real Estate Board, and then the comments are just provided by me. So here we go. Let's dive in. Sales activity easing as expected. So what does that mean? Well, basically, and this is general for all of Alberta, is that there's not as many houses for sale as there was last year, and so therefore there's less sales. It's as simple as that. Now let's talk about interest rates. Are higher rates coming? Well, this slide presentation was made a couple days ago. Today is Thursday, June 8th, 2023. But the rates actually just went up yesterday by 25 basis points. The Bank of Canada overnight rate went up by 25 basis points. And so absolutely, that is going to drive mortgage rates higher. So most banks have already adjusted their mortgage rates higher. And we're going to be somewhere in the 4.59 to 5.5 range for your 5-year fixed rate, depending on, who you talk to, your credit score, and so on. Obviously, the best rates are only available to people with the best credit, and so on. Inflation is this is driven by inflation, and it started to creep up again. It was trending down. We came down from, as you can see, a very high inflation rate, and we peaked last year at around 8%. It's come down quite a lot, and it did start to creep up a little bit because real estate prices are starting to creep up again this year. And so the Bank of Canada took an aggressive stance, and they did indeed decide to raise their overnight bank rate, which then affects the bond market, and therefore interest rates will increase. Now, Alberta and Saskatchewan to lead the country in growth. This is interesting and exciting, and makes a lot of sense, to be honest. Alberta and Saskatchewan, no surprise, kind of the shining stars in the Canadian economy, despite certain factors trying to hold us down in the West and out east, basically, certain people in power trying to hold us down in our economy here. And we're still figuring it out and figuring out a way to have robust economies in Alberta and Saskatchewan. So you can see that there were huge increases in many different sectors, basically, in the economy. And things are going well, actually, in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And as this mentions, this is really exactly why we are going to be able to see strong GDP numbers coming out of Alberta and Saskatchewan specifically. 2022, 116,000 jobs created in Alberta. Not too shabby. The employment rate has ticked up a tiny. The unemployment rate, excuse me, has ticked up a tiny bit, but I don't think this is anything really significant. And again, you want to look at where are these jobs being created, and the great news and sort of an indicator that the Alberta economy is diversifying is we had a huge gain in the number of skilled labor jobs. So jobs that require some type of higher education, some type of a degree. We're seeing huge increases in those types of jobs in Alberta, and those are high-paying jobs. So we're attracting a lot of people from out of province to these jobs. We've got a lot of positions to fill. As I understand it, more positions open than there are people to fill them. That will put pressure on wages. It'll make wages go up. That'll make inflation go up. And that is part of the reason why we might see interest rates go up even more throughout the rest of the year, wages are very inflationary in the economy. And basically, if we continue to see inflation start to creep back up, you can bank on it that the Bank of Canada, no pun intended, or maybe I did intend that, will increase the Bank of Canada overnight rate further. And therefore, we will see mortgage interest rates creep up a little bit, not a lot, a little bit, maybe one or two more increases by the end of the year. Nonetheless, jobs report for Alberta, very positive. Lots of skilled jobs, high-paying jobs that people want here in Alberta. These companies and the provincial government, if you've seen any of the campaigns in the news that the government is running in other provinces to attract people to Alberta, it's worked perfectly and maybe too good. And there's tens of thousands of people from other provinces, mainly Ontario and BC, moving to Alberta to fill these jobs. They're also moving to Alberta for more affordable housing, but the more people that come, the less affordable the housing is going to become. And that's exactly what we've seen in the last couple of years, because 100,000 people moved to Alberta last year. You guys have heard me say that before. And most of them were from Ontario and BC. And it's because they were looking for affordable housing and a great quality of life, which we have in Alberta. We've got everything. So, yeah, this is all great news. And again, all leads towards higher home prices is really what this leads toward. Unexpected gains in professional jobs. So as I was just saying, this is the chart that shows you there's been an unexpected gain in professional, scientific, and technical work. And just as a anecdote, I guess you could say, I think this is the future of Alberta. I think that as we diversify away from oil, not that oil's going away and not that it's going to happen really anytime soon, but as the global powers that be that are kind of all coming together to put in these carbon credits and all these different taxes and things like that on carbon, we will eventually move away from oil in the way that we use it today. Now, I'm a big fan of oil and gas, of course. I support Alberta. I love oil and gas and the industry. But this is what's happening. This is the reality. Now, to see that we've got a massive increase in professional, scientific, and technical jobs, this leads me to believe that the future for Alberta is in these professional and technical types of jobs and services. Calgary, for example, the Calgary Chamber of Commerce and so on have done a really good job of promoting Calgary globally to big companies that are now setting up shop in Calgary and in Alberta. And that's why we're seeing this increase in these types of jobs. And we have a very fair business environment. Our taxes are very fair to businesses. They could be better, but nonetheless, it's a lot better and more favorable here than other parts of Canada. Hopefully it stays that way. I hope it does. And we're attracting big companies and they're hiring. And I also think this has to do a little bit with AI. Some of you may know that sort of one of the people who's considered the godfather, I guess you'd call it, of AI, artificial intelligence, which is booming right now. I know you've all heard of ChatGPT and all these types of AI bots and things like that are publicly available for people to use now with OpenAI and stuff like that, companies like that. Anyways, this person, I forget his name right now, but he worked and studied, did his research in artificial intelligence out of the University of Alberta in Edmonton. So Alberta has a great history with this man and his research over literally decades. And he is one of the people that laid the groundwork for the current state of AI that we find ourselves in. And I think this is going to continue. So that was my point, is that I think we're going to see a lot more tech companies set up shop in Alberta, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'd love to see Calgary become the Silicon Valley of the North. So let's move on. Turnaround in migration. So these numbers are from last year. And you can see that international net migration to Alberta, 99,974 people, 22,921 from Ontario, 10,000 from BC, and the rest from other provinces, and then immigration as well. So there's just a massive number of people moving here, and I don't see why that would end anytime soon when we have this labor shortage that we have to fill all these high-paying technical jobs. It's just going to continue to attract more and more people to Alberta to come and take these great-paying technical jobs. Well, people that take great-paying technical jobs can afford expensive houses. And they may be coming from markets where the housing is much more expensive than it is in Alberta. So to them, everything is on sale, despite the fact, like I said, that the prices are rising rapidly, and we've seen a huge increase in the prices in Calgary over the last, let's say, 2.5, 3 years. I think that's going to continue, and this is kind of the proof in the pudding. These types of patterns that we see in the market and in the economy, they don't typically just stop on the dime. COVID was an example where it kind of did, but that's a very rare circumstance. That's a once in 100-year type of thing. So I think there's a lot of momentum behind Alberta and a lot of opportunity for people, and they see that, and they're looking at this globally. People in Canada are looking at this and thinking, I can buy a house that's a tear down, a literal fixer upper. It's a dump basically in Toronto proper or in the city of Vancouver itself, and they're literally $1.5 million. This is insane. Some of you may or may not know this. I used to sell real estate in Vancouver. I sold there between 2018 and 2021, and the sticker shock is real. It's crazy. What you have to pay to get a single family detached house within the city of Vancouver itself. You don't get a very good house for 1.2, 1.5 million. You're not getting anything that great. Something much better, much bigger, much newer, much nicer, in a much nicer neighborhood is half the price or less than half the price in Calgary. So anyways, I think that this trend is going to continue. Also, as I said in my newsletter that maybe led you to this video, 1 million immigrants came into Canada last year. So there is no way that the home builders across Canada can build enough homes to house all these people to keep the market at balance. There's so many people coming to Alberta. Remember, the government has long-term vision to have 100 million people living in Canada by the year 2100. This is their mandate. And the way they do that is they add 1 million people per year between now and then, roughly. Maybe some years it's 500,000, maybe some years it's 300,000, maybe some years it's 700,000. Nonetheless, that is the game plan. Make no mistake. And what are the odds we're going to build 80 million homes to house all these new people in the next 80 years? That odds of that is zero. So, there's just going to be a massive demand for the foreseeable future, and there's going to be some ebbs and flows, and oil price will crash, and oil price will be 150 a barrel sooner or later, and all these crazy things will happen. But over the long term, there's nowhere to go but up for Alberta and Canadian real estate. We're a gigantic country with very few people, but one of the best economies and biggest economies in the world. There's nowhere for Canada to go but up. Alberta and Calgary are part of Canada, and a significant part, especially Alberta. And Calgary within Alberta is, the driver of all this and the leader. And to me, it just spells higher and higher and higher prices over the years. Not necessarily immediately, although we're experiencing a very rapid increase in prices right now. Eventually, things will cool. There might even be a correction. But the long term, which real estate is supposed to be a long-term investment, I just can't see this going really well for everybody living in Alberta and Calgary specifically. Rental market. Let's talk about rents. The rental market is insane. I've had some clients that I've sold their properties, and for whatever reasons of their own, they decided to go to the rental market. and they are having a tough time. Or maybe they just told me, Graeme, we changed our mind. We're not going to do this because we looked at the rental market and we can't get a rental. There's nothing for rent. The landlords who have these properties for rent, they don't even reply to most of the questions and messages and stuff that they get in many cases. And then the rents are escalating very, very rapidly. The vacancy rate is probably, the most recent statistic here is for Calgary apartments. Two-bedroom apartment up 20% in 1 year, year over year, up 20%. Average two-bedroom apartment to rent in Calgary, $1,900, $1,932 now. And the vacancy rate for apartments specifically in Calgary, 2.7. I can guarantee you it's lower than that now because these statistics are from 2022, and the inventory has only continued to shrink. The housing market and the rental market, the resale housing market and the rental market tend to work in lockstep. So when the resale housing market is hot, the rental market's going to be hot too. And there's nothing for rent. There's nothing for sale. This is what drives prices. It's really simple, supply and demand. So many people moving here, so few properties for rent and for sale. Prices go up. It's really simple. Housing starts are flat in Q1. So again, talking about, can we build our way out of this issue? Can we build our way out of low inventory of homes for sale and rapidly escalating prices? And the answer is not a chance. For one thing, builders don't build affordable housing. They build the product that they can make the most money on that they think that they'll be able to sell. So in Calgary, that is single family detached, double front attached garage, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, maybe an unfinished basement. Maybe they do the landscaping and the fence and the deck for you. Maybe they don't. And that house new is going to cost you at least $700,000. That's kind of the entry point now to get into a new construction. Not even that big, maybe 1,800 square foot starter home for $700,000. Maybe the government will say, they'll mandate, I want all you builders to build affordable housing and build more starter homes for first-time home buyers. Well, a starter home in mahogany in Southeast Calgary is $600,000. I don't know how that qualifies as a starter home in any meaningful way. I mean, I bought my first house in 2005. It was brand new. It was the show home. Now, it was a townhouse, but it had a finished basement. It was big. It was super nice. I paid $169,000 for it, and I thought I was crazy. I thought that was a way too high of a price. So, I mean, the government is not going to be able to mandate to builders to build more affordable housing so that new construction housing starts, bring enough product to the market that the market gets back into balance. It's never going to happen. Resale supply. So again, just look at the sales. The aqua or green line is the new listings, and the black is the current inventory. So you can see since 2018 was the last time the market peaked. That's when you could get a house on sale in Calgary. If you really wanted a deal on a house in Calgary, you should have bought in 2018 but of course that's when the economy was absolutely terrible here. We were in a pretty brutal recession, and 10% of Albertans were unemployed. This is not exactly the recipe for people wanting to spend money on a house when things are like that. Since then, we've had a lot of things happen in the world and in the economy, and you all know what I'm talking about. And the inventory has just dropped and dropped and dropped, and now we are at effectively record lows. I know it doesn't show on this graph as low as it was in 2006. But there's some caveats to that. It is a record low relative to the number of people that we have, because we have way more people living in Calgary now than we did in 2006. Again, take a look at new listings. The number of new listings since the beginning of 2022 is dropping way, way off. And the sales have started to creep up again, which I guess is a good thing. It's very, very interesting what's happening. Totally tale of two cities, though. Take a look at Edmonton. Look at our market. All these three lines are converging together If you know anything about the market, the statistics, and the numbers that I've been spouting off to you guys, this spells higher prices. That is 100% what this spells. In Edmonton, they're not quite in the same situation. They've got a lot more inventory, although it is trending down. And they don't have the same population as us. There's a lot of different factors there. Edmonton is doing okay, but Calgary, I think, is obviously the shining light, if you can look at it that way, in this situation. Alberta gains driven by Calgary. So again, taking a look at the benchmark price, and we did take a little dip in the second half of 2022 as the interest rates rose throughout the year. The market cooled a little bit, not a lot, in Calgary, and the prices came down a little bit, not a lot, in Calgary. And as a matter of fact, this price dip right here reflects the bottom of the market. So as I said in my newsletter, which again, if that is what you were reading and then you clicked my video to come here, take a look where I said, if you look on a graph, let me back up. What I said was, the only way you can tell where the bottom of a real estate market is by looking back on the statistics a year and looking at a graph of the prices and going, okay, that's where it was. So that's what we're doing here. We're looking at June, roughly here, June 2022, May 2022 was the peak of the market last year. And then as rates increased, the market corrected a little bit, not a lot. Homes under 500,000, detached homes, probably didn't come down at all. They probably continue to rise, as a matter of fact. Maybe same thing for semi-detached half duplexes. Townhomes might have corrected a bit. Condos didn't correct either. Condos have been on an absolute tear the last 12 months. They're up a lot, 10% in most neighborhoods. And all properties since the beginning of this year are back on an upswing, and we have since surpassed the record price that we achieved last month and last year. So again, all these indicators leading towards further price gains. Benchmark price, as you can see, again, from the beginning of 2023 is up, and months of supply is down. Everything is down. Yeah, it's just wild what's going on right now across the board in Alberta. Now, home price movements, they vary across the country. Again, average prices don't really tell much of a story. Prices are very, very local. Nonetheless, Toronto and Vancouver took a huge hit last year in their prices. The prices came down significantly. In some suburbs of Toronto, I read in the news, houses had crashed 40%. If you didn't buy when the houses crashed 40% and you live in Toronto and you wanted to buy, you missed it. I mean, they're already up by a huge percentage in a lot of those areas. Same thing happened in Vancouver. Interest rates crept up. The market kind of chilled out. The prices therefore took a dip because they got frothy and they went beyond fundamentals, because they had also, I believe, both achieved record high prices last year. And there was an opportunity there to buy at a bit of a savings, and that has come and gone. The prices in Vancouver and Toronto are ripping higher as we speak, as is Calgary. So it's just a crazy story about the entire Canadian real estate market. Edmonton detached supply is improving, which, depending on which side of the fence you're on, being a seller or a buyer, I guess that's a good thing. If you're selling and you need to buy, that's definitely a good thing, because you'll actually have some selection and be able to get maybe that next level move up house. In Calgary, it's not quite the same story. You can see the different price points here. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. Whoops. And let me see if I just can't show you guys that. Okay. Well, let me just show you this. So months of supply is what this says. And you can see where we have 2023, the orange lines. There's nothing for sale in the 300 to 400 price range. There's barely anything for sale in the 400 to 500. And it gets a little bit better as the purchase price increases. But nonetheless, what's really interesting is the million plus, the luxury market, which is sort of a harbinger, a canary in the coal mine, so to speak, of the overall health of the market. And we currently have 3 months of supply, which is a seller's market in the luxury market in Calgary, where, let me just zoom out a bit. You can see in Edmonton, they have 11 months of supply in the luxury market. So this is a tale of two cities again. They're not comparable. Calgary is on fire. If the luxury market is in a seller's market and it's, doing well and it's hot, the rest of the market is going to be hot as well. And especially on the lower end of the market where you've got, almost no inventory. This is beyond crazy, the amount of properties for sale in these lower price points. When something comes on the market in these lower price points, it will sell on the same day it's put on the market. It'll have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 offers, and it'll sell with an unconditional offer to whoever the highest bidder is. That's how most of these deals are going. Detached activity across the province. So interesting. City of Calgary, months of supply. We are a tick higher at this time than we were at this time last year. Just a smidge, not enough to make a difference. And that's just for detached houses, not every product type and category. City of Edmonton, a lot more inventory for detached than they had at this time last year. Red Deer's even. Red Deer, is doing well. Fort McMurray, way more inventory. Could be the fires. There's all kinds of things that are always going on up in Fort Mac that are outside the scope of normal, I guess you could say. They have a lot of unique factors in that market. City of Grand Prairie, a little bit higher. Lethbridge, a little bit higher. Medicine Hat, a little bit higher. And detached prices, again, average price 2023. You can see that in all of these cities, Calgary, we're basically at the highest average price that we've ever had. Very interesting. So things to consider. Let's talk about buyers and sellers. Conditions will vary based on the price range, the property type, and the location, not only within the province, but within the city, and even within what communities within that city. I always say that real estate is very, very local. It's hyper local. You could literally have a buyer's market going on in one section of the city and a seller's market going on just a couple communities over. I mean, it really depends. So generally, though, all of Calgary in a super strong seller's market. And, what is driving this, right? So these are the things to consider. The economy, it is strong. Oil price doing good enough to be driving profits for the oil industry. Interest rates are creeping up. But again, 4.5% mortgage is not a high interest rate. If you're over 30, 35 years old, you know that because you can remember when you were a bit younger, maybe you had a house. Like my first house I bought when I was 28 or 29, something like that. And my interest rate was 5.5%, which is higher than what you can get right now. That was back in 2005. And my mortgage broker told me I had an amazing rate. So, it's all about perspective. And historically, to all the younger buyers out there or the people that haven't really just been maybe paying attention quite so much, 4.5% mortgage rate is not high. And that would be a good rate, historically speaking. So would 5.5%. Those of you who are longer in the tooth like me, I'm 46. Man, we have parents that paid 18% interest on their mortgage. Oh, Graham, yeah, but a house was only $60,000 back then. Yeah, but their income was also relative to the cost of the house, so it was still a very high mortgage rate, but they could do it. People paid the mortgages at that rate. And it was doable. 11-12% is what you could get a mortgage for years in Alberta. And people could still buy and sell houses and afford it, right? Based on their income at that time in the 80s. That was in the 80s, early 90s, maybe a bit. And based on the house prices at that time. It's all relative. This situation is not any different, really. Yes, the house prices are much higher than they were then. We're talking 40 years ago. Incomes are also way higher. So anyway, it's an interesting time. Interest rates historically not that bad. Housing construction We'll never be able to build enough homes to increase the supply enough that the market gets balanced. So forget about that. It'll never happen. Inflation rate, something to consider. Inflation was trending down. It looks like it's creeping up a little bit again. It's not going to get back up to 8% or anything, but it is creeping up. The Bank of Canada took what I would consider a positive and aggressive move to quell inflation just yesterday. Like I said, up 25 basis points. And that will cool things. It will have the effect that they're hoping. It won't dampen real estate prices, but it will have an effect on inflation. That's what they're trying to do. And then the population, the immigration, the migration. Welcome to Alberta. You know, we're just welcoming so many new Albertans. And man, I sure hope that they know how to vote. So anyways, these slides were courtesy of Anne-Marie Laurie. I think I got her name wrong in the beginning. She is the chief economist at the Calgary Real Estate Board. And she did a great presentation for us the other day, and they emailed us out these slides. So I thought I'd share them all with you guys. Anyways, I think the future for Alberta is looking really good. Lots of good, high-paying technical jobs. I think that trend is going to continue. I think the low inventory is going to continue. Why would it not? Why would people start listing their homes by the thousands all of a sudden? It's just not going to happen. But the inventory will increase slowly over time as the economy goes through what economies go through, which are all kinds of shifts and gyrations based on whatever happens out there in the world. So my advice, if you want it, is don't wait to buy. Just get on the real estate roller coaster, you guys. Just get on the real estate roller coaster and hang on for dear life. You know, that is how most Canadians build wealth in this country. Most Canadians that retire wealthy, they retire wealthy or even just okay and are able to retire because they bought some real estate and they either kept it the whole 25 years of that mortgage, and it quadrupled in value over 25, 30, 40 years, so that when they sold it when they were in their 60s or 70s or 80s, it was worth many, 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 many multiples than what they had paid for it. Or they bought a primary home. Instead of selling it, they refinanced it, took some equity out to have a down payment for that next home, and then they bought that next level home and they kept that one as a rental property, so that when you retire, you've got two properties that are paid off, or maybe three or four if you're very astute at this type of thing. It's not that hard to do, and you're going to retire and be just fine because most Canadians don't really earn enough to save enough to have enough to retire on. It's very, very difficult to do. Obviously, the cost of living is increasing. Everything's getting more expensive. Real estate, food, gas, inflation, all these different things, the erosion of the value of our money, the increase of the cost of other goods. I would really recommend you guys get into the market with whatever type of property you can qualify for right now and ride the property ladder. If you can only get a condo, but you don't want a condo, get a condo, and then just ride the property ladder, pay the mortgage down for the next 5 years, make a sacrifice. The value will go up. You'll pay the mortgage down. When you go to sell it, you'll have a big chunk of money to put down on that next level house, whether it's a townhouse or a single family detached, whatever you want and can afford 5 or 10 years down the road. So guys, just get into the game, get some real estate. And I'd love to help you out, of course. So give me a call if you want to buy or sell some real estate. Thanks, everybody. Take care.